students, to my studio and another learning adventure. Today we're going to be learning about what mood, illustration, and point of view are through one of my favorite books, The Day the Crayons Quit. And then we're going to be creating our own illustrations and writings with those concepts incorporated into it. And stay tuned to the end of the video. I'm going to give you some interesting facts about crayons. And let's move on to our presentation. Today we're going to be talking and learning about illustrations in art. Your objectives are: understand the concept of an illustration, identify mood in art and writing, create an original illustration to go along with a passage that you're going to write, and appreciate the book The Day the Crayons Quit. Let's start off with a definition for illustration. An illustration is a picture that goes along with words. All right, so which is the best illustration for the fairy tale that I'm going to tell you? Some things to consider include: does an illustration for the passage tell the reader anything about the narrator? Match parts of the story with what's going on in the picture, and compare and contrast two similar illustrations by their effectiveness. I'm going to start off showing you one illustration that I found on the internet for the story I'm going to tell you, and see if you can guess what it is. So here is the picture. Can you guess what fairy tale this is supposed to go along with? If you guessed Rapunzel, well, we just don't see long hair in this picture, although it does look like she may be in a tower. I don't think there's enough clues in the picture to guess that. If you guessed Cinderella, I like your guess there too, because she's got a beautiful gold dress on, and there's a crown waiting for her on a pillow on the table next to her. But I'm afraid that's not it either. Let me show you the next picture. There's a whole bunch of mattresses, and there's a girl on the top of them. Somebody's bringing her, looks like a bowl of something yummy, maybe soup. Oh, this is Princess in the Pea. If you don't know the story, I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of it and see if you can match what's going on in the picture on the right with the story that I'm going to tell you. A long time ago, in a faraway land, there was a castle, and in the castle lived a king and queen, but they were getting older and they needed to find a princess to marry their son, the prince. But none of the princesses who came were good enough for the king and queen. They were either too tall, too short, they didn't like the way they dressed, they didn't like their accent. None of them was a princess enough for their son. Time went by, and on one dark and stormy night, there came a knock at the door. They opened it up, and there was a wet and bedraggled girl standing there who had been caught in the rain. She proclaimed, "I'm a princess, and I need a place to stay overnight." The queen thought to herself, "Sure, she's a princess. We're going to put her to a test. I don't believe this girl one bit." So the queen put a tiny little hard pea underneath a whole stack of mattresses. She thought that only a real princess would be able to fill that pea through all those mattresses. So the queen said, "I have the perfect bed for you. It is the most comfortable bed in the whole castle. Come, let's get you situated." So she showed her to the bedroom with all the mattresses. There must have been 20 mattresses stacked on top of each other. And there was a ladder to get to the top one. So the princess climbed up, and the queen said, "Oh, let me get you some warm soup to warm those bones of yours." So she goes and fetches her some food. The princess is combing out her wet hair, because anybody who has wet hair knows that if you let your wet hair dry without brushing it out, you're probably going to get a lot of knots. And the queen said, "Oh, and let me send somebody to entertain you if you're a princess." So she sent the court jester to go do some funny juggling and jokes for her. So the queen then left, and the princess slept overnight in the tall set of mattresses. And when the next morning broke, the queen went and checked on her visitor and said, "Oh, princess, how did you sleep?" And the princess said, "Awful. This has got to be the worst set of mattresses I have ever slept on. It felt like there was a huge rock in the middle of them." And the queen thought, This is a real princess, for only a true princess would be able to feel that hard pee all the way through these mattresses. The queen proclaimed, "Oh my goodness, princess! Let me introduce my son, the prince. He's looking for a wife. Would you like to marry him?" "Sure." And so she married him, and they all lived happily ever after. So now, thinking about that story, which one of these two pictures is the best illustration? They're both beautiful artworks. There's no doubt that the artists who made them were very talented, both of them. But only one of them has a lot of the clues that were in the story. If you thought it was the one on the right, because of the mattresses, the jester, the queen with the bowl of soup, the princess combing her wet hair, and all the mattresses for the big bed, then you would be absolutely right. There's a lot of details that went into this particular picture that match our fairy tale. Now we're going to look at which is better for an illustration. Is it a photograph or an artwork, or could it be both? Let's say you're reading a story about a bakery, and one of the questions that they ask you after reading that story is, does the bakery serve parfait? Looking at the photograph, you might not know for sure if any of these are parfait, but the drawing illustration on the right actually says parfait. The next question may say, does the bakery serve strawberry parfait? And you can see that the illustration on the right would again be better. Sometimes you can pick up clues from photographs that may not be listed in the story. For example, if you know that there are at least 4 different kinds of cakes at this bakery, you may not know what kinds of cakes, but if you look at the picture that goes along with the story may show you those cakes. Here would be something you would see in a science book. The top one shows, and by the way, that's not a real fish that's been cut open. It's an anatomical model made of plastic. But here we can see that there's actually a picture of what the real organs would look like inside of a fish, whereas the drawing down below isn't a drawing illustration that would actually identify each one of those. I think for this one, the best choice would have been a combination of the two. Something that has the labels with all the words and then the real pictures with the photograph. This one is an actual artwork I found online of a resort destination in the Bahamas. And I was looking around at great places that maybe you could take a vacation at. And I thought, whoa, this is really beautiful. I love how this artist rendered this. And then I decided that I would do a little more looking around to see if I could see some pictures. So I went to TripAdvisor, and here is a photo that somebody actually took of the actual resort. Now, when you look at the photo and then you look at the artist artwork, one of them looks really fancy, and the other one, not so much. So it's very important that when you're doing research with things online, that you go to multiple sources to see if you can figure out the truth. Because if I was booking a vacation just based on the artwork, I would be probably a little disappointed if I saw what was in the photograph. So what is mood? It expresses a feeling. It can be in words or pictures. So I'm going to first talk to you about some words. Here's our first one. The wind howled like a banshee. The thunder rolled, and the lightning drew zigzag lines across the sky. If you don't know what a banshee is, it's from an old Irish legend. It's of a ghost-like specter woman, and if she screams, then you know that you're going to die. Very spooky. All right, so we know that the lightning drew zigzag lines across the sky. With the sights and sounds of the thunderstorm cloaking his room, Charlie awoke from his night's sleep. As he peeked out from under the covers, a dark, shifting shadow appeared on the wall of his room. So this is a fiction example. It's not a true story. It's a made-up story. And let's see if we can answer the question based on the words. For the reader, the selection creates a mood of peace, fear, safety, or humor. If you're in my classroom and you think it's peace, give a thumb up. If you think it's fear, give a thumb up. If it's safety, give a thumb up. If it's humor, give a thumb up. So let's look at this. Is it peace? Anywhere in the paragraph does it talk about being peaceful or things that you would think about when you're thinking about peaceful things? Maybe a rainbow in the sky or birds twittering or maybe a peace symbol. No. Let's look at fear. So banshees, they're kind of scary. That might be fearful. Thunder, I don't know about you, but my dog's really scared of thunder. Lightning, it can hurt you if it gets you. And he also peeked out from under the covers and saw a dark, shifting shadow. So the fact that he had to peek out from under the covers means he's already afraid. And the shifting shadow would be really spooky to me if I saw it on the wall of my room. So that means I'm not going to check on safety or humor because fear has got to be the right answer because I was able to tie that back to the writing above. Now we're going to look at a nonfiction passage and questions. Sometimes it's helpful to look at the question first before you read the paragraph. So let's see here. For the reader, the selection creates a mood of destruction, negativity, failure, or optimism. Sometimes if you don't know what a word means, you can eliminate the other answers and deduce that that's the correct answer. Let's look at the paragraph. One of the ways we can improve life on planet Earth is to use more solar energy. The sun's solar power is a cleaner form of energy than fossil fuels such as coal and petroleum. If our sights are firmly fixed on using solar energy, Earth's pollution will decrease. The atmosphere will be clearer, global warming will slow down, and fewer animals will lose their habitats as people search for new oil supplies. Definitely, solar energy is a ray of sunshine for our planet. So, which one of these words describes the mood of this writing? Is it destruction? Is it talking about how the earth is dying and things are being destroyed? Well, it does talk about how animals lose their habitats and pollution. But let's think about it. What's the first sentence in the paragraph again? One of the ways we can improve life on planet Earth is to use more solar energy. So what they're talking about is how to improve these things. So I don't think it's destruction. Is it negativity? Well, let's look at the last sentence of this passage. Definitely solar energy is a ray of sunshine for our planet. I don't think that is negative at all. I love the sunshine reference to solar energy. I think this is a pretty positive, upbeat kind of a passage here. Failure, well, it's talking about what we can do to help maybe prevent Earth's failure, so I don't think it's failure. And then there's the last word, optimism. So if you don't know what optimism means, it means having a positive outlook on things. And I think this paragraph, because of the things we've already talked about, how it would solar energy decrease Earth's pollution, how we'll have clearer skies and global warming will slow down and animals will have their habitats. I think it's definitely looking on the positive side of what solar energy can do. So for those reasons, the correct answer is optimism. In the following examples of art, what is the mood the artist is trying to communicate? So here in this painting by Norman Rockwell, what do you think's going on in the picture? There's a lady serving a big platter with a turkey on it, and there's a bunch of people at the table. If you guessed Thanksgiving, I think you'd be right. And then look at the expressions on their faces. They're all pretty happy. So again, this painting is really showing a happy moment in these people's lives. So the mood would be happiness or joy. This next one is by Pablo Picasso, and it was painted during his blue period. And it is a musician who's playing a guitar. Look how his head is tilted down and his shoulders are slumped over. And look at the expression on his face. And again, have you ever heard the expression, I'm feeling blue today? It means you're feeling sad. So I think all those things contribute to a sense of sadness with this picture. This one's by Edvard Munch. It's called The Scream. And you can see that there is somebody screaming in the picture. And look at that sky. It looks like it's on fire. And then look, there's two shadowy people on the bridge following him. And something obviously has him frightened. So if you guessed fear as the mood of this, I think you'd be right. So now we're going to look at a book that is wonderful for great illustrations that go along with words, and the pictures and the words have mood as well too. The book is called The Day the Crayons Quit, and it's written by Drew Daywalt, and the pictures are by Oliver Jeffers. Here's how the book begins. One day in class, Duncan went to take out his crayons and found a stack of letters with his name on them. Here's what the first letter said. Hey, Duncan, it's me, Red Crayon. We need to talk. You make me work harder than any of your other crayons. All year long, I wear myself out coloring fire engines, apples, strawberries, and everything else that's red. I even work on holidays. I have to color all the Santas at Christmas and all the hearts on Valentine's Day. I need a rest. Your overworked friend, Red Crayon. So let's look at the picture of the red crayon there. It looks like he's leaning up against the wall. He's wiping sweat off his brow. Even look at how he closed the letter there, your overworked friend. So, boy, I think the mood in this is exhausted, tired, overworked. And then look how the letter goes along with the rest of the picture. Did he mention a fire engine? Did he mention apples and Valentines and strawberries? Absolutely. And look, there's a Santa too. Absolutely right. So all of those go right along with the writing and shows us what's actually been written about. Could have the passage been written differently to go along with the same picture? Maybe showing excitement instead of exhaustion? I wonder what that would sound like. Dear Duncan, I feel like I have won the lottery of all crayons when you pick me above all others from the crayon box. I feel like I have just won a contest when you make me do all these wonderful hearts on Valentine's Day. And I just couldn't be more excited to be doing a fire truck, Santas and apples and strawberries. I cannot wait for you to pick me again. I have so much energy. I could do this for you all day long. Your excited friend, Red Crayon. So I think you can see that could be easily rewritten depending upon what mood you want to show. I'll read you one or two more. Dear Duncan, all right, listen. I love that I'm your favorite crayon for grapes, dragons, and wizard's hats. But it makes me crazy that so much of my gorgeous color goes outside the lines. If you don't start coloring inside the lines soon, I'm going to completely lose it. Your very neat friend, Purple Crayon. So let's look at the crayon there. He's wagging a pointed finger. He's got a little scribble above his head. Of course, we've got the wizard, grapes, and dragon in the picture. But what is the mood for this? If you said that he was irritated or frustrated, I think that would absolutely go along with what was written. And look, it is kind of scribbled the way it's been colored in the picture too. All right, here's our last example. Dear Duncan, I'm tired of being called light brown or dark tan because I am neither. I am beige and I am proud. I'm also tired of being second place to Mr. Brown Crayon. It's not fair that Brown Crayon gets all the bears, ponies, and puppies, while the only things I get are turkey dinners if I'm lucky and wheat. And let's be honest, when was the last time you saw a kid excited about coloring wheat? Your beige friend, Beige Crayon. Oh, look at the way he's slumped over. His little eyebrows are kind of scribbled. He's got a frowny face. I think if you said that he was very sad because he only get to do wheat and, turkey dinners if he's lucky, then you would be right. All right, so how will you show mood in an illustration and a letter? So now we're going to talk about the assignment. All right, for this lesson, you're going to need a piece of paper and a piece of notebook paper to write on. And I have one of these sheets that's How Do You Feel Today? And you can pause on the video if you want to to refer back to for any emotions or moods you want to put on your crayon today. And of course I have crayons, a pencil, a Sharpie is nice but not necessary, and of course your wonderful imagination. Let me go on to say that if you don't have crayons, you could use colored pencils or markers to color in as well. I think the effect will be just as fine at the end product. All right, so the first thing I like to do on the back of my white paper is I like to plan it out. And if you're in my classroom doing this lesson, I'd like you to go ahead and lightly number 1, 2, 3 on the back of your paper. I do want to also talk to you that if you're in my classroom, we are going to be mounting these to a piece of construction paper. So what would that look like? That looks something like this here, where we would put the letter and the illustration, just like it is in the book. But if you really need to turn your paper this way, we could do the illustration and the letter going down this way. The only problem is that the letter will either need to be trimmed to fit on the back of a piece of construction paper, or we might just give you a white piece of paper to write your letter on another day. All right, so on the first line, I need you to write your name. Woohoo! If you want to put your teacher's name, of course you could put your teacher's name too. Then on the next one, I really want you to think about what color you want to use. Of course, you're only limited by the colors that you happen to have, but in my classroom, we're actually limited by these because these are the only colors that I have a piece of colored construction paper to put behind your artwork when we're all done gluing it down. So I'd like you to look at these colors and choose one color that you like to do for this project. Next, once you pick the color that you want to do, I'm going to do green. Next, you're going to pick an emotion or a mood that you want your crayon to have. And that's where this sheet comes in. I'm going to just do a fickled finger of fate one. Okay, I chose frightened, it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to write down frightened. Awesome. Now there's only one thing left for me to brainstorm before I get started, and that is some things that are green. So I'm going to put a couple of things, maybe 4, 5, or even 6, that are going to be green things. So let me see. I think dragons are sometimes green. Sometimes there's green apples. Sometimes the leaves on trees are green. Sometimes bushes are green. Grass. Sometimes clothing is green. Maybe I'm going to add a few more. Alligators are green. Maybe a house could be green. Maybe I could have, let's see, a car green. And then I'm going to pick some of these to put in my picture. Because this was a brainstorming thing, you don't have to use all of these. Some of these would just be great. So then I'm going to flip over my paper, and then the next thing I'm going to do is decide where I want my crayon to be. So I want to go ahead and draw the body of my crayon. And I do want to talk to you for just a moment about the positioning of the body, because if you have a sad crayon, you may want to turn it so that he's bent over like this. Mine that I chose was frightened, so I'm going to have mine jumping up in the air like he's been startled by something. And to start off, I do want to talk to you about doing a cone shape for the top of the crayon. So there's a little bit of a flat area at the top of this crayon, and then it angles down like the sides of a triangle, and then there would be like this little circle around the bottom, almost like a witch's hat. And I'm going to make mine nice and big because I'm going to be outlining it with a Sharpie. I want to make sure I don't do anything too small, because if it's too small, I won't be able to outline it with a Sharpie. Because sometimes when you do crayon colorings over pencil, the pencil line doesn't show up great. So we're going to do 2 lines that come down from our circle for our top of our crayon. Curve it around. Make another oval around that. And then we're going to do 2 straight lines down. And then curve it at the bottom. And then if you've looked at crayons before, they have this little wavy line here and here too. So I want to include those. It really helps to make the crayon look like, the picture look like a crayon. Just that one little detail does do a lot. And again, those are 2 sets of lines that are curved. Then I'm going to think about his legs. We're going to have him jumping up, so I'm going to have his legs spread out, and I'm going to do a few little action lines down here to show that he's jumping. I'm going to have his hands up in the air. Oh my gosh, he's so scared. I've just made him little stick figure legs and arms and hands. And then for his face, the expression on a frightened face, it has these little eyebrows that come down like this. And then it has big startled eyes like this. And then his mouth, oh my gosh, he's got little teeth that are here and then teeth that would be down here. And he's really looking worried or surprised or scared, and that is perfect. That's what I want. Now I need to think about what might he be scared or frightened of, because I'm going to be writing a letter using this emotion or mood, and I need to make sure I include things in my picture that might be scary to him. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a snake down here. Oh my gosh. I know snake wasn't on my list of things to do, but snakes can be green, and it's okay to change your mind once you want to do something, so it's no problem on that. So I've got a snake, and maybe he's hiding out in some grass. All right, then I'm thinking about this, so maybe, I don't know, this is kind of scary to me, I'm going to do a tree, and then I am going to have some rotten apples, green apples in it maybe. Add the little cloud in for that. And so maybe the green apples, maybe they have little worms in it. There's a little worm coming out of them. That would be really gross to see that. So these are all apples that have been eaten by worms, but they're still hanging on the tree somehow. My goodness, I don't know how that happened. All right, and then we'll put a hill back here. And then I said I could do a house maybe on the back of my paper. So I'm gonna do kind of like a haunted house maybe. I'm gonna do something like this. And then we'll put this, and then we'll have a window that has some boards that are over it. And then maybe the door has maybe a little bat on the front of it. Be careful, getting too small there might wind up losing some of that detail when we go to outline. Maybe I'll make that a little 3D. And then maybe there'll be a dragon. So maybe this is like a dragon that would be like this. We'll give him a few horns, some ears. We'll have them going like that, so I can go in back and erase that because it'll be in front of it. And then maybe these wings would just go off the page, which is okay. Maybe I'll give them a few spikes back here. And gotta give them a few legs, huh? That would be pretty scary. Okay, I think I've filled up my paper now, and I've put lots of things that he would be afraid of. So now I just have to go through and outline everything. All right, so you can see I've already started coloring this one. And when you color, I recommend doing short overlapping strokes on top of them of each other. So when I color, it's actually going to fill in more easily than if I went and did a scribble like this on the back. And I try to go back in and I try to fill in all those areas because that will take longer for me to do. I've chosen a good green for the crayon, and now I've chosen a different shade of green for the grass. And then I'm just going to go through here and make sure I color everything. Sometimes I do like to press harder. That makes the color be darker or more rich than if I had gone and just pressed lightly. Then that might even give me a different value or shade of green for this. And since I am doing green, I probably need a lot, huh? Got a lot of green things in my picture. And just because we're using green doesn't mean we can't use a few other colors. If you'll remember back in the book when we were looking at the Santa on the fire engine, he was wearing a gold belt buckle and he had on black boots. You can use other colors in here, but we do want to make sure that we have no misunderstanding that green is our featured color, so we want to use that one the most. All right, so I left off these little green apples here. I almost forgot them. There we go, we got our green apples. So now it's time to write our letter. So I want to talk to you a little bit about letter writing. There are a couple of customary things that you will find with letters. So I kind of want to talk to you about those now. So the first thing we're going to do for our simple letter is start off with a salutation, which is also known as a greeting. And you can make this letter out to anyone. It doesn't have to be Duncan, but because we've been talking about Duncan, I'm going to start off with Dear Duncan. But you could make this out to your mom, your best friend, maybe our principal, or even your art teacher. And then we need to think about, remember, he's frightened, he's scared. These are the things that he's frightened of. So you can really put a little bit of personality, maybe even make it funny. But we are going to need to make sure that it's clear that he is frightened and what he is frightened of in the pictures. So I'm going to start off by saying the following things. Why are you always trying to scare me? Because we're writing from the crayon's point of view, remember to put in those key words like me, because it is from their point of view. Do you think it is Halloween all year long? If you've got the idea of what is frightening here, maybe we need to start a new paragraph to talk about some of the things that are in our picture. Why do apples have worms in them? Really? How many apples have you seen with worms? I know you love dragons, but do you have to draw them all the time? They are so big and scary. What is it with haunted houses? Do you want a ghost to come out? Because I do not. Why are you drawing snakes? Snakes are not your friend. Snakes sometimes have venom. Do you want a snake to bite you? Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a closing. And if you want to kind of sum up that he's frightened again, you can include that in your closing. So who is this from? Your frightened friend, green crayon. I certainly could have suggested some things that he would rather color in rather than snakes, wormy apples, a haunted house, and dragon, but I kind of was starting to run out of room here. But you can definitely put in all sorts of great, wonderful details into your letters as well. And if you're in my art class, we're going to get a piece of construction paper. If you've chosen green for your crayon, then we'll try to find a green piece of paper to glue these down on so you can keep them together always. All right, I hope you enjoyed that lesson. All right, you need to know how the book ends. Well, poor Duncan just wanted to color. And of course, he wanted his crayons to be happy. And that gave him an idea. When Duncan showed his teacher his new picture, she gave him an A for coloring. And an A+ for creativity. Let's think back on the beginning of this book. Duncan found a stack of letters when he went to take out his crayons. Do you think the crayons really wrote all these letters? They hopped out of the crayon box to write them all to Duncan? Who else is in the room besides Duncan that could have written these letters with crayons? Could have been the other students, but could it have been the teacher too? And if it was the teacher, why would she do that? Did she want him to improve in his coloring skills? Probably. Did she really want him to improve his creativity? Probably. I think that's probably the real reason for all this. This is such a wonderful book. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you want to read more about the pages, oh my gosh, there's probably other YouTube videos that go throughout the entire book, or you can maybe check it out from your local library, or maybe even purchase it. Oh, I hope you enjoyed making those awesome illustrations and letters to go along with them. I wonder who you wrote your letter out to. All right, on to our interesting facts now. So Crayola makes, on average, 3 billion crayons a year. That is a lot of crayons to get into the hands of children and adults alike around the world. A definite beloved coloring supply. Also, did you know that on the list of 18 most identifiable scents, Crayola crayons come in at number 18? And for the first 40 years of the Crayola company, people would have to hand roll those papers individually and glue them down. Wow, a lot of love and care goes into making each crayon. All right, remember, always be kind to everyone you meet. It makes a big difference. Give a big hug to someone today. They probably need it. And keep on making great art.